The 7th console generation was a pretty incredible time in retrospect. Some of my most fondly remembered games from that era would be titles such as Super Mario Galaxy, Metal Gear Solid 4, Batman Arkham City, Red Dead Redemption, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and of course TF2. But one of the big titles from that time was a certain game that for many years escaped me. One that I was aware of for the longest time but just never did pick up for one reason or another. But eventually my curiosity as well as a certain somebody who gifted me the game on Steam demanding me to play it, you know who you are fucko, led me to trying out the game which, according to the internet, invented difficulty being part of gaming. Dark Souls from 2011, developed by From Software and published by Bandai Namco. Before this, I had flirted with the Soulsborne series a tiny bit. Back in 2020 when the lockdowns went into full swing, I was playing through a lot of my PS3 games that I hadn't beaten yet, and the one that easily left me with the most memories was Demon's Souls, the spiritual predecessor to Dark Souls. And boy oh boy did I have times with that game. Lots of frustration, lots of trying to figure out what the hell to do in certain parts, but also feelings of triumph when actually making progress and appreciating the game's fine mechanics. Overall, I do look back on my time with Demon's Souls with positivity, but it's the kind of positivity where I feel no need to play the game, ever again. So how would it feel to play its successor? The game that everyone swears by as being wholly superior and an improvement in almost every possible way. I don't know, go figure it for yourselves, you lazy fat fucks, goodbye. Okay, enough bullshitting. Let's get down to brass tacks. For the record, my entire first time playing this was streamed live, with my main man Dopeypoke guiding me through the thing. When I say guide, I just mean point me where to go. I never got any cheese tactics with the bosses, I never received free items, and I absolutely never ever summoned anyone to help me. So do with that information as you will. Dark Souls, much like Demon's Souls' story, is incredibly confined, but in a good way. There's barely any cutscenes besides the opening and ending, and you don't really need to understand why you're doing things you do. You simply go where you can and defeat any and all opposition that stands in your way. If you do want to dive deep, there is a decent amount of flavor text to go through, and small bite-sized bits to piece together things from the NPC characters, item descriptions and whatnot. I, however, could not care in the slightest about that stuff, so I didn't really delve into it. But that's the beauty of it. It works both ways. If you don't care, you don't need to care. If you do care, you'll have lots of fun drawing interpretations and theories, which people have done. Oh boy, have they done that.
I fear no man, but that thing, it scares me.
It's kind of amazing how much a game like this makes you think about your actions with such a simple control scheme. At the end of the day, all you can do is light attack, heavy attack, block, parry, run, and roll. There's also pyromancy and magic, but I refrain from using either of them because of dumb personal pride reasons. Oh, and I suppose jumping, but we don't like to talk about that in this house. Let's just say bing bing bahooing in this kind of game doesn't feel all that natural. Thankfully though, it's not needed in all too many places. And besides that, the gameplay is more than fine. All your movements have that slight sluggishness to them, but not in a way where it makes the game harder for no reason. More so in the sense of, if you don't think about things you're about to do and you end up doing something monumentally dumb, you will be punished. Hard. Like Darth Vader with Admiral Ozzel kind of hard. Okay, got the obligatory Star Wars reference for the video out of the way pretty early. Point being, if you fail on almost every single occasion, it feels like you yourself fucked up. Keyword here being almost. Wow, okay.
Bullshit!
Going from Demon's Souls to this, the two biggest differences to me were the SS Flask and the open world. I can't tell you how nice it was not needing to grind for healing items like in Demons. Every time you stop by a bonfire, the checkpoints in this game, you always get at the very least 5 flasks.
5 of them!
5 of them!
Then the open world aspect. I completely understand why most people prefer having a massive interconnected map for you to explore. I just generally prefer more linear games. Make no mistake, this is not a fault of the game in any way. It's just me having the sense of direction of a dog that's blind. And deaf. And can't smell. And has rabies. Though there are still things that I could call pocket area, as in smaller confined places that you warp into from the large main map. The painted world being an obvious example. Other improvements include overall more interesting bosses, better graphics, no more particularly terrible runbacks to bosses, I'm looking at you man-eater, and the upgrade system doesn't suck cock anymore. There's also much more NPC characters to interact with, some of them being rather helpful, like Anastasia in Firelink, who, if you give Firekeeper souls to, can upgrade your Estus
To go even further beyond!
But man, there's one deed that still haunts me this day. Something I can never forgive myself for doing. And of course, that is destroying Guinevere, how the fuck are you supposed to pronounce it? To obtain the Lord Vessel. I mean, it's great to be able to warp between bonfires, though honestly it doesn't allow you to warp between all bonfires, and this item really should have been given to you way earlier on in the game in my opinion, but my god, these hands ended her. I don't care if she was supposedly an illusion. Just a tool created by Gwendolyn to manipulate you, or that her massive, mouth-watering melons weren't real.
They are real to me!
And I guess there's somewhat of a morally hard choice, according to some people, whether you want to kill Quaylag's sister or not to obtain an extra Firekeeper soul. Oh, but who gives a fuck? The old broad is dying anyway. Might as well get it over with and acquire some good shit out of it. Just be wary of her nearby simp. Ma'am, I just want you to know. This is gonna hurt you a whole lot more than it's gonna hurt me.
You monster.
I don't care. Shut the fuck up. I suppose this is as good a time as any to talk about the bell gargoyles in the room. The eternal subject of discussion around this and all the other From Software Souls-likes. The difficulty. And of course retarded game journalists referring to anything even semi-challenging as the Dark Souls of X. Although while we're on the subject, I think we can all agree that Honeypop 2 Double Date is the Dark Souls of Match 3 dating sims. Am I right or am I right?
My god, between the two of them, there's enough titty milk to end world hunger.
I fucking love this game. We have all heard it. Dark Souls is incredibly hard. It's one of the hardest games of all time. Oh, is it now? Is that what you think? Well, if that is what you think, I have something to tell you. Something that might shock and discredit you. And that thing is as follows. Dark Souls isn't that hard. Alright. In all seriousness, it will completely boil down to what kind of games you're used to. If you're used to mostly modern games that have autosaves very sparingly, this will feel hellish to you. Me on the other hand, who grew up with the 8-bit era, getting used to games that were not only hard, but a lot of times also straight up unfair, this wasn't that bad. I mean, I'm not trying to jerk my gamer PP here too much, but I was clearing the Mega Man hexology before I knew Santa Claus wasn't real. That's right, I beat all 6 of them before I turned 18. The big thing to remember is that Dark Souls is very punishing, but also pretty fair. I say pretty fair because there are certainly some cases where you absolutely get shafted for no reason. Ceaseless Discharge is a perfect example. This boss doesn't give a crap about proper hit detection. While we're on the subject of stuff that rubs me the wrong way, I'm also really not a big fan of the curse mechanic. My problem comes down to the fact that I fundamentally disagree with status effects that last after you die. I see death as a total reset. You die, you lose your souls, you get sent back. That's your punishment. But something as monumental as not having access to 50% of your HP until you're able to cure it with a purging stone, assuming you even have one, seems needlessly cruel to me.
This is cruel and unusual!
Purge and stone.
This is no longer cruel and unusual!
Then there's also parts where if my helpful co-commentator hadn't instructed me, I have no idea how I would have figured it out. Now I'm not talking about secret items or any of that stuff. I mean like reaching the Four Kings fight. In order to get to it, you need to equip the Covenant of Artorias ring. The only clue you get is the item description. If you got it right before the fight, then maybe, but the description of one random item when your inventory becomes fucking massive after a little while to reach a boss fight that is mandatory to beat the game, that's a little ridiculous to me. The Hydra. It's just a big chore. Takes a long time, and it's just plain boring. But besides those, I can't recall too many specific parts where there was obvious tomfuckery afoot. Another thing to remember is taking your sweet time with everything. You can avoid so many hypothetical and literal pitfalls if you just go slowly and keep your eyes open. Though even this doesn't guarantee you safety 100% of the time. Both are bad in a boss waiting. Go fuck yourself!
That kind of bad.
What surprised me is that the environments were more frustrating than the actual bosses. I was genuinely shocked how many of them I was able to beat on my first try. And none of the bosses brought me as much despair as Sen's Fortress did. I have no idea who Sen is, but I bet he's a monumental asshole. Oh my god.
No.
Oh my god. Fuck you. Oh!
No.
It fucking targeted them. Oh. No! Fuck off. Ah!
Fuck you. Fuck you.
Speaking of Sen's Fortress, The different areas in this game are so amazingly varied and diverse, to the architectural beauty of Honor Lando, the thick forestation of Darkroot Garden, the lava oozing hellscape of Demon Ruins, and of course, Blight Town.
Why am I poisoned? Why am I toxic? What?
Did you think I was gonna mention Blight Town and not play that clip? You sweet summer children. The one area that I genuinely think was handled poorly from a gameplay perspective was the Tomb of Giants. Simply because it's too dark. You cannot see more than a fucking centimeter in front of you. Of course, eventually you get a light source, but even getting to that is such a chore. Before obtaining it, I felt like I would rather get a vasectomy with a rusted butter knife than going through that place.
Okay, I won't spoil, but yeah, just keep doing that. Oh, fuck me.
Oh, okay.
That sucks.
That's fair. Certainly an aspect of which things will be difficult will somewhat depend on your build. There are so many different, interesting, smart, and just insane builds that people have done, and one of the reasons fans keep playing this game over and over again to experiment with more and more deranged tactics. And again, I am not one of those people. I'm a simple man. Hell, just look at my character's name, that should be obvious enough. For my build, I simply put all my eggs into vitality, endurance, and strength. I'm the same way in too many games. I like being able to take a good amount of punishment and then give it back tenfold. For my gear, I simply went with Havel the Sneaky Bitch's armor to make myself an absolute tank, the Grass Crest shield for some fantastic stamina recovery, and the Great Demon Machete, which I absolutely adored. The overwhelming damage, the ability to stagger even some bosses, and just pounding everyone in my way to the ground. Is it possible to legally marry a weapon from a video game? I don't know, maybe in Texas. Or Japan. Probably Japan. Actually, definitely Japan. I'm so glad I got this thing from the Capra Demon. The thing has a 5% bloody drop rate, and this guy got it on his first ever playthrough. I may not have been lucky when it came to IQ, genetics, or social class, but at least I got the Great Demon Machete, so it all balanced out in the end, I suppose. While on the subject of bosses, they come in so many different flavors, from normal size to absolutely massive, from slow as molasses to ungodly speedsters, from great fun intuitive challenges to retarded dog shit. Majority of the bosses range from decent to really good, but the few stinkers here are Dark Sun Gwendolyn, since all you do is run after her and dodge a few different projectiles. The Moonlight Butterfly, which is just a long waiting game. The Ceaseless Discharge, who, like I said, has a hit detection more screwed up than marriage between siblings. Pinwheel, who I still hesitate to call a boss considering he goes down easier than your mom did last night. And of course, the Bed of Chaos. Fuck the Bed of Chaos. This is one of the worst bosses I played against in a long time in any game. Your level, your build, your gear, they're all meaningless. Just run and hope it won't bitch slap you into your insta-kill doom. I was a little confused on what to do initially, but when I realized what was in store, I just wanted to get the fuck out of Dodge, and of course this thing happens to be one of the mandatory bosses. Speaking of which, surprisingly many of them are completely optional. Though I naturally went through all of them. No survivors on this run. Now on the flip side, my favorite bosses were Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, Artorias the Abyss Walker, Manus the Father of the Abyss, and of course the blowjob brothers of Honor Lando themselves, Ornstein and Smog. I'm kind of 50-50 on doing a ranking video of least favorite to most favorite bosses of the game. Let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in seeing. Dark Souls has one of the most odd and interesting online components of any game I've come across. First, the basic stuff. Being able to leave certain kind of messages to help people. Or to try screwing people over with all them items ahead at bottomless pit messages. Lord have mercy, there's a lot of those. Then the spicier aspect. Summoning and invading. I was a tad bit worried thinking that I would get invaded on the regular, but that worry was laid to rest very quickly as I got invaded only 3 times in my whole playthrough. 2 honorable invaders and 1 dickbag that didn't care one bit about proper etiquette. Though I still did lose each encounter. A big pleasant surprise was when I myself was granted the opportunity to invade another player, along with someone else.
Hello, sir. Let's hunt this little bitch tits down. Yeah!
Nice.
Praise, good sir.
The invasions, like the story, works for both those who do and don't want to participate, since nobody can invade you if you play offline and there's really no particular need to be playing online. And on the upside, if you are playing online, there's also the option of summoning someone to help out in a particularly difficult area or on a boss that's just breaking your balls. But of course, as we all know, if you do summon,
You're a pussy!
Kidding, I'm kidding. For real though.
Real talk.
If you are somebody who wants to experience the game and wishes to summon assistance every now and then on parts that are giving you a hard time, I'm not going to stop you. I am simply going to silently judge you and think that I am a superior player, thinker, human being, and a more competent lover because of it. Dark Souls was a particularly interesting game for me personally. It's very clear why this was one of the most talked about games a little over a decade ago. It's a title that combines mechanically simple gameplay with a wide open world to explore, where you are allowed to make greatly differing decisions on how you equip your character to tackle varying types of areas and bosses that will test you in every way imaginable. While obviously not a perfect game by any means, this is still something that I recommend to anyone who enjoys a good challenge or third-person action. So for me personally, I give Dark Souls a very stellar 8.5 out of 10. For the end, I'd like to take a moment to give small shoutouts to new people who came into the streams, and whom I've been seeing in my comment sections afterwards. So thank you kindly to Dan, Patrick, Hexus, Unibro, and Demon Lord Jeff.
My name is Jeff.
Now, am I going to be playing Dark Souls 2?
Yes.
Am I going to be streaming it during the summer?
Yes.
And am I going to be making just this retardedly stupid and sneakily offensive name for my new character?